Well, hello everyone. Welcome and good morning to our latest Bristol Life Business Club. This time it's about residential property, and once again it's sponsored by Bevan Britain. Thank you for joining us. So here we are in Lockdown 2.0, the slightly disappointing sequel. It's deja vu all over again. Still, it will be over soon. We all believe, I'm sure. Today we'll be exploring the Bristol residential scene from a variety of different perspectives with our three speakers, looking at pricing, transactions, stamp duty effect, resilience of Bristol, working from home factors, and looking out into 2021 about what might be happening in each respect. Our three speakers today are Hannah Valkovich, co-founder of the Build Bristol Group, Mark Robinson, managing director and owner of Mortgage Style, and Lisa Howells, sales marketing and customer care director of Curo. A few parish notices before we start. About some of the stuff that we're doing. There's been big news, and I hope you've heard some of this, on our Bristol Property Awards. Appropriately enough, we're going to be talking about that at this property special today. We've switched to an ambitious and creative new approach aiming to deliver value and engagement to all in the property sector. We figure there's no point in just hunkering down. Hope is not a strategy, and you don't generate business by simply mothballing it and wishing it could all be as it once was. Same applies to all sectors, really. We've all just got to find ways of getting going in different ways, pushing on, helping rebuild our pipelines in 2021. So we've created the Bristol Property Symposium. It's a unique three-stage property conference. Firstly, thought leadership, plenary sessions with keynote speakers on national level insights on resi and commercial property. Secondly, networking, and gosh, we've all missed the networking opportunities this year, so it's vital to come together at this point in this way. Unique sponsor hosted hubs giving both structured and randomized networking, the latter replicating the happenstance of what happens at awards and dinners and so on, a little bit like a hosted box at the rugby. And then yes, excellence, of course, through the Bristol Property Awards, celebrating the very best of the sector, live presented in a bespoke studio, recorded sponsor films, plus live reveals of our winners throughout each time. There'll also be an exclusive real-life event as well later in the spring for all sponsors, finalists and delegates. It'll be exclusive to those who come to the Bristol Property Symposium, and it'll be great to get face-to-face when we can, as soon as we can in the spring. The awards themselves run on February the 12th, and all ticket information will be announced shortly. It's been superb how our sponsors have backed this approach very, very thoroughly. A big shout out to our headline sponsors, Smith & Williamson, plus our winner of winners, Close Brothers, the category sponsors, and there are a number of them, but it's right to recognise them. AWW, Blaze Commercial Finance, Bristol Life, of course, Cotswold Homes, Allsall Construction, Marsh Commercial, MDA Consulting, Optima Systems, Origin Workspace, Planning Portal, Rate Setter, Redland Court, Juniper Homes, Roydsworthy King, Shawbrook Bank, Spaces, so Regis, Vickery Holman, Wilmot Dixon, and YTL Developments. And then a variety of feature sponsors and partners, including Clark Bond, Thornbaker, Triangle Networks, Oak North Bank, and Soapworks. It's a fantastic array of the leading property businesses in Bristol, and we'd urge you to join in with that. It's an opportunity to rebuild our businesses and our pipelines in 2021, and we're very grateful for the support we've had so far. It's brilliant that all of these companies have come to back this. Please talk to us about how you can get involved. It'll be the biggest gathering of property specialists in the city, probably since the Bristol Property Awards in May 2019, which really does seem like a long time ago. Also, if you trade in some city called Bath, there is a thing called the Bath Property Awards, and the deadline for the nominations for those is a week today. So that's Thursday, November the 26th. More awards, Bristol Life Awards, will be held on April 22nd in our Uberglam marquee, and the event will be as Uberglam as ever, celebrating the whole of the city. And frankly, it will be just superb to bring everyone together for that. After this year, this will be a great time to step forward and support the city and recognise excellence. Demand for tickets means that we cannot guarantee, we've already had so many inquiries about this, we cannot guarantee to be able to get everyone in. So we want to make sure that, you know, in previous years, we've had to close the open tickets when we've had over 100 inquiries. We can't get everyone involved. If you do wish to take part in those, please talk to us. There'll be, you know, various sort of sponsorship options and so on, which we'd be delighted to talk to you about. To be involved, you really do have to be involved, and it'll be great with the full array, the panoply of Bristol businesses involved. Quick shout out to our sponsors there. This is further out, so they include Headliners, Marsh Commercial, Anderson Financial, British Corner Shop, Brunel Group, Burston Cook, CMC Marquise, Curo, one of our speakers today, SLX, Spaces, and VWV, again, Triangle Networks, and also Clark Wilmot, Procter & Stevenson, and again, some lot called Bristol Life. So there's lots of things we're trying to do to help bring businesses together, to promote the sector, promote the wider business through Bristol, and there are opportunities, we hope, which are mutually useful for all of us, because ultimately we're in the same storm, albeit in a different boat perhaps. Talking Bristol Life, thank you for your continuing support for Bristol Life. We were delighted to bound back to life in September, and the support we've had from so many companies, editorially and advertising, has just been superb. It's been quite heartwarming. Also, we think it's helping galvanise some business as well, of course. It's a mutual process. We hope that we help you generate business and employment, which underpins the city's success, as well as, of course, gaining revenue and business for ourselves. Forthcoming business clubs and surgeries, a couple of shout outs here. The next business surgery is on the 25th of November with Stripe OLT, focusing on how we protect our businesses, data, and particularly cyber security. Look out for our next Bristol Life Business Club, sponsored once more by Bevan Britton on the 16th of December. Very deliberately timed. It's a charities and Christmas special of all the sectors that have been affected, of all the areas where there's the greatest need. Our charities really do need the support and recognition for the work that they're doing. If you've got if there are charities watching today or a favoured charity, please come forward and see how we can get charities involved to celebrate the brilliant charities of Bristol. Talking of Bevan Britton, I wonder if we could ask David Hobbs to step forward to say a few words. David is a partner of the firm and a commercial property specialist. Bevan Britton sponsor the Bristol Life Business Club in real life and also virtually. David, good morning.
Morning, Greg. Morning, everyone. Yes, my name is David Hobbs. I'm a partner in the real estate department at Bevan Britton, and we are very proud to be a long-term supporter of Bristol Life and have been delighted to continue our support in this virtual format. Just to give a very little background about Bevan Britton, we are a national law firm, but our head office is here in Bristol, just near Castle Park. We're one of the country's leading property law firms with a team of property lawyers, I think now in excess of 90 lawyers, and we advise on all aspects of property law, from estate management to some of the largest development schemes in the UK. And I'm interested today to hear the views of our panelists about how the residential property market has been impacted by the pandemic. Thanks, Greg.
Very good. Thank you, David. Again, thank you to you, but to Bevan Britton for the support. We will be back in real life at Avon Gorge at some point. It might be April. It'll be around that time, we would hope, and we can come together again to have our real life lunches. We will continue to run our business surgeries where we have a deep dive into a particular sector. We'll continue to run those virtually, and the format seems to work very well. We've had a lot of support for those. But again, thanks to Bevan Britton, and let's come on to the business of today. I'll be interviewing our three panelists on your behalf. Please send any questions if you wish using the Q&A button below. You can ask anonymously if you'd like, or be named, whichever works for you. And this webinar will be available on our Bristol Life YouTube channel, and many, of course, will access that. And please pass it on if you think it's useful. If you don't think it is, then don't bother. But I'm sure it will, because we've got some great speakers. They are our three speakers today: Hannah Valkovich, co-founder of the Build Bristol Group, and we'll be talking with her in a second or two. So Hannah, let's have you come forward, and let's hear how Build Bristol has been in these times.
Oh, is it?
There you are.
Hi, morning, Greg.
Hey, Hannah, how are you doing?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Really good.
Yeah, well, you immediately sound very positive. We're going to be talking about your story a little bit this year, but also looking out into next year. You co-founded the business with your husband, Dom.
Yeah.
Interesting having husband-wife duos, just as Jane and I do in Media Clash's case. You've been going about 6 years, but how has this year been for you?
Well, at the beginning of the year, it was all guns blazing, and I was really excited. We had some phenomenal projects booked in, great team, ready to go. And then sort of the whisperings of something was occurring over in China, and it dramatically changed for us quite quickly, actually. So March, when everything started and the lockdown hit, we decided to shut our 6 sites we had on at that point. We spoke very directly to our clients and wanted to ensure that they were happy for us to stop play, if you like. Most of our projects are residential builds, so when people were required to then be at home working and with children, the last thing we felt they wanted was to have builders on site. So we shut down completely for 6 weeks, and during that time we had calls from clients with projects booked in for the rest of the year, which pretty much overnight cancelled. So that was kind of panic stations, because we work generally 6 months ahead and get the diary filled. So
that's your pipeline between pitching or getting instructions and then completing is 6 months, or starting in 6 months?
Starting in 6 months. So we're always working 6 months ahead. We've got a team of 25, so to ensure that they all have work and to keep the cogs moving. You know, we have a young family as well, and responsibilities with that. So that's generally how we work.
So if you have a pipeline that's maybe 6 months out, how is May looking for you and June of next year?
Well, funnily enough, it's turned around phenomenally. I looked back when you asked me about this. I went back from sort of March 17th, that key date, up until June the 1st, and looked through, and I'd had about 60 inquiries, and they might be anything from, you know, just taking a wall out, but then people also wanting to do home offices, convert the loft, extend the kitchen, realizing that maybe working back in offices isn't going to be an immediate option, and having maybe some disposable income from holidays being cancelled, now was the time to kind of jump on it. And to do that, we've never spent so much time in our own home environments. And I mean, I know for one, that 6 weeks of lockdown, we managed to redo the middle floor, we painted the kitchen, and because you're in it and you start thinking, actually, that could be done. Yeah. So that hit, and a few clients cancelled. And then when we realised that we could start to work after that initial 6-week lockdown, we went back through clients that we'd said we aren't able to help because we're so busy, and touched base with them. And we ended up picking up 3 brilliant jobs for us, you know, whole renovations where the clients weren't living on site. So it meant that the PPE measures were able to be in place. We had teams in houses that were not vacant. So our team could work in rooms, you know, independently. And actually looking at the figures from this year, although we had the slight dip, it's probably going to be our best on record.
Really? Sorry, when you say this year, you don't mean this calendar year, do you?
Yeah, this calendar year compared to last year. And I'm now booked from June up until June next year, and secured 5 new contracts to start in January. Obviously, we had that 6-week shutdown, so those jobs have rolled over. And then the clients that did cancel contracts have come back and said, actually, you know, perhaps it was a trigger effect and my job is okay. We do still want to proceed. And we've had to say, well, that's brilliant, but we're going to have to slot you in with the new work that we've picked up.
At the risk of asking you a sort of willfully simplistic question, if you've got all that demand, then is there a way you can increase the supply, that you can gear up and take more people on?
I've always felt that, as you said, it's a husband and wife team. I do all of this side of the business. Dom is on site, project managing. We are always in a comfortable position with 5 projects. I always feel that that's a day a week per project, if you want to break it down in those terms. I think the minute you go, well, for us, we go above that. I'm not sure that we're reaching our full potential. Standards might slip. You've got a larger team to manage. And then there's the risk that, say the work did slow down, you've then got a bigger team to to find work for again. So I always feel very comfortable rolling out 5 projects at one time. And they can range from around 75,000 up to 750,000. So for us, for a company that's now into our 6th year, that's quite a growth really from where we were those years back when it was just the 2 of us.
Hannah, it's a lovely story over those 6 years, but I suspect also for those watching, it's a great story to hear after this year particularly, where, most others have had a tougher time. I'll come on to some of the broader questions when we have our panel in a moment.
Yeah.
But I just wondered, are you finding that clients are moving from being cautious to increasingly just getting on with it? And is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think when it first hit, if you like, I was just thinking, oh my goodness, we've got a mortgage to pay. Things like furloughing hadn't been announced. The bounce back loans for businesses weren't in place, all those things. So immediately you start thinking, right, well, we'll have to stop this to do this. And we've got enough to be okay for 3 months. We just didn't know how long this would be going on for. And so I think immediately everyone just shut down and thought, well, I need to ensure I've got what I've got in the bank, my job might not be safe. And actually what's happened is and like you said, I think people are thinking, well, this could be going on for a lot longer. Let's just crack on and get this work done.
I mean, we're finding out with Bristol Life, obviously the property sector, which, give or take that attribute that you said applies much across the but it actually is applying increasingly across all sectors. People are thinking, well, good or bad, 2020 is pretty much cooked. That's gone. We've got to get on with it. And we may or may not like the place we start from, but this is where we are. And there's no getting back. Just got to get on.
Absolutely. I think also with things like this, the stamp duty being introduced, I've always said if you have the foundations for a brilliant home, why move? That's a personal opinion. But when I'm talking to clients and I go and meet them and I see their homes and they're thinking, well, if we do an extension or loft conversion, will it financially benefit us in the long run? And I always say, well, are you happy here? What do you need? What do you need to get out of your home? And then generally, I think they think, well, actually, we are really happy here, and let's do that. And
well, there's a peace of mind thing, which is that value add isn't just financial. Value add is quality of life. Interesting point. If I could ask you just to step back now, we'll bring you back for the panel session. But it's a great way to begin the session. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Marcus. If I could have you step forward for mortgage style. Good morning.
Hi, Greg. Hello, everyone. How are you?
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah. Hi, Greg.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. I was wondering, we've heard from Hannah how, her business's year has gone. It was, that big dip for a few weeks and then the recovery. What's your shape of business this year? How's it been?
Yeah, quite similar, Greg. When it hit, as Hannah said, March 17th, I think it was, things dropped off a cliff for us, really, because a lot of our businesses purchase, obviously related to purchase. So when people couldn't view or offer on properties, then it was bound to hit us. I would say for the next 6, probably to 8 weeks, actually, we were really not doing a lot. I had to check the phones weren't broken and just why he wasn't ringing. But it was quite a time when we were thinking, is this going to get back to where it was? But actually, from June onwards, I would say it's got busier every month. And similar to what Hannah said, if we look at our figures for this calendar year, we're probably one of our best years, even with the lockdown. Yeah.
It's remarkable. I mean, clearly your business provides all different types of mortgage offers, but you particularly focus on the atypical, the sort of non-standard, whether that's in clients or in properties. Talk us through some of that work and how that has developed during this year. Yeah,
so I mean, we do the vanilla stuff, as it's called, so first-time buyers and remortgages, but we have always dealt with the more complicated scenarios, and like you said, that could be property, it could be the individual. And what's come to light more in lockdown is things like furlough. So we've got lenders who will not lend if a client's on furlough, and actually some of them won't even lend until you've been back to work for 3 months. So there's that to add in. If you're self-employed and you've taken a bounce back loan, again, a lot of lenders have an issue with that. Now we can get round this, we can explain it, we can give the reasons why, we can show it wasn't touched, it was taken as a precautionary measure, all that sort of stuff, but it is still a factor we have to look at. So that's certainly been a challenge with some lenders.
Could I
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can I just explore that specific detail? Because there will be many people on furlough and at all different stages of life development, property they're interested in, and so on.
Yeah.
If someone is on furlough, how, if not easy, but how can you get them a mortgage when that income isn't quite as secured as it would have been otherwise?
Yeah, and it has got harder. It was easier to start with when people are first on furlough. Lenders would take that, or a lot of lenders would take that, and as normal income. And if they would take the 80% that they were on usually. And then as things progressed, a lot of lenders said, well, actually, no, it's a bit risky because what's going to happen? We don't know they're going to go back to work. So we're giving them a 25-year mortgage and they could have a no job by 2021. So it got harder, but there's still lenders who will lend on a furlough income. They may seek reassurances from the employer, perhaps. So sometimes they'll ask for confirmation of what's the likelihood of them returning. They may look at that employer and how is that employer doing? What line of work are they in? Is it how long is it going to affect them for? That sort of thing. So it comes back to us as well as brokers to put in a good case for that client around the person's income. Is it going to continue? And usually we're successful. So yeah.
Which is good to hear. Tell us about how valuations have worked. Has there been any downward pressure on valuations where, I don't know, where the mortgage offerer is actually pricing properties lower? Because we've heard that elsewhere.
Yes, we did see that. It varied between different surveying firms, but we did see the same paragraph in surveying reports coming up again and again, which clearly covered the surveyors' backs in case there was a significant drop in property values. So it was kind of, yes, we've given this value, but due to the conditions, it could drop further. So we've got to, it's almost saying we've got to build in a 10% drop or 5%, whatever they were working on. It has got better, I've seen, but you've still got people being a bit cautious. The trouble is, a surveyor's putting their name on the line if they're valuing a property, and if they're concerned that there could be future drops, I guess they've got to factor that in as well.
Well, we should, when we have the panel session, we'll talk about valuations in 2021, what trends we're expecting. I guess the issue that everyone faces is that no one knows. This is a time of greater uncertainty than previously, but clearly we've all got to find a way of navigating it. Marcus, for now, I could ask you to step back, please.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
We'll talk to you in a sec. And Lisa, if you could come forward. Lisa Howells, a very experienced property person. You had head of residential sales at Savills for 8 years, and then 5 years at Curo. You're the sales marketing and customer care director of Curo. And with a number of significant Bristol developments, such as the Willows and Woodland View and so on. So also proud sponsors, I should acknowledge it again, of the Bristol Life Awards and something called the Bath Life Awards. So there we are, I've done all of that. Lisa, tell us, how has business been for you? A similar shape to the year and your ending pointing upwards or not?
Absolutely, Greg. Very similar to the two other panelists. So at the beginning of the lockdown period, our constant chat was around mitigation strategies, forecasting, all of those things. So we took a very hard look at ourselves and decided to be extremely prudent, as nobody knew how COVID-19 was going to pan out. And we looked at reducing our forecasts for output by up to about 25%. How wrong were we at that point in time? Because within the first 8 weeks of becoming reoperational, pent-up demand was such that, we were just getting inundated with people that were looking to make appointments to view new properties. And we've looked at our half-year figures, and we're actually back to nearing to be back to where we would have been on our original forecast. So, it's incredible, really, that a pandemic can actually create such a bounce back in the marketplace.
I'm not looking to get into a misery fest here, and clearly Bristol Life, our role is to find the good stuff, celebrate the great things that people are doing. But I have to say, I'm sort of really pleasantly surprised that all three of you are being so positive. In other sessions, other sectors, we haven't had this degree of positivity. And frankly, it's just great to hear. I mean, aside from your business and our other two panelists, it's just encouraging that transactions and business are happening out there. Tell us about if there's been a sort of change of emphasis or focus on the appetite for new builds. Has there been anything marked about that this year, as well as the overall transactions?
Yeah, Greg, especially sort of in Bath in particular and Bristol, we do seem to get a lot of people looking to move from London. People are changing their habits, their working habits have changed dramatically. And I think people are putting far more emphasis now on outside space and having a third, a fourth, fifth bedroom, depending on their family arrangements, to be able to work remotely. People that tend to work in London now maybe are working in London perhaps only one day a week, even if that. Home working now is so popular that clients are specifically looking for really good outside space, and they're also looking for spaces within their new home that they can either adapt for home working, or they can have a private shut off area. So rather than go for a 3-bed, they're going for a 4-bed, creating an extra study or an extra workplace, because sometimes husband and wife, and as you know, most people are getting older that tend to live with their parents now, you can be looking at husband, wife, daughter and son all working from home on some occasions. So yeah, definitely the stamp duty introduction of the for this year that Parliament brought in has undoubtedly had a great effect on the marketplace. And anybody that's looking to move into a property before the end of March the 31st, taking advantage of that incentive has definitely supported the marketplace, incredibly. So yeah, buyers' habits have changed. They are looking for something different. They are looking for that really good quality, well-designed space. But certainly the stamp duty hiatus has helped immensely also.
You've touched on this, and we'll come back to stamp duty when we've got the whole panel, but you've touched on this already about the type of client. But tell us about the process and timescales. If, in broad terms, if someone came for a viewing, if they're allowed this weekend, I'm not sure if they are, but in a week or so's time, whenever they're allowed viewings, they see one of your places. What is the timescale to get that over the line typically, and how has that changed?
So I think even with the PLC house builders now, I think that the way that we conduct viewings may change forever, Greg. This might be a complete change in the way that we manage customers. So historically, we would be open 7 days a week, and we would be open to everyone. So people could drop in, they could make an appointment from 10:30 in the morning till 5 at night. Now we're not able to do that. People have to make dedicated appointments. And we are seeing half as many people as we were, but actually the output has doubled, because the people that we are seeing are quality, and we have the time to spend with them. So because we make that standardized appointment, our footfall is much smaller, but we're able to spend 4 hours with one person, showing them around each of the properties that are available on a development and really understanding what their needs and wants are. So the team are telling me that they're finding this new way of working actually a real benefit, because they're really able to help the people that need it straight away and give them quality time, rather than trying to be in a busy sales office, people dropping in, people coming, just coming back after Sunday lunch on a Sunday, when they're trying to do a deal with some really good quality people, and then you've got 3 families turn up that all want to look at a show house and they all want your time. So for us, I also think for others and some of the PLCs, this may be a big step change in how we manage applicants.
Yeah, and I think that point about the perhaps you're not quite saying this, but perhaps the more direct and openness that people have in this time. It's a sort of, you know, my time is precious. I'm only going to be coming forward to look around a house, not speculatively or out of, you know, general interest. It's because I'm genuinely interested. We've had exactly that with Bristol Life. It's the same process. You can have much more straightforward discussions with people about their 2021 marketing plans, about how they're rebuilding their pipeline, the need to get out there and so on. So I think there's a mirroring going on there, because the sort of pandemic has in a sense lowered everything for everyone. So we are just simply much more straightforward in how we communicate. We come back to the point about timeline. Yes, to viewings, and that's a point extremely well made. What about from agreement of deal to actually happening? Is that going longer? Is it more complicated than previously?
Absolutely. Do you know what? It's actually worse now than the start of the lockdown. So the start of the lockdown, we all thought, gosh, you know, we had to get all these COVID-19 riders in place in our legal documentation that went out to clients via our solicitors. But we were still getting results. I don't know whether there's some type of, maybe a little lethargy has slipped in, or we're finding that contractual agreements are taking far longer to get over the line. Help to Buy have been so inundated with applications that normally each stage of the Help to Buy process would take around a week. Each stage of those processes now are taking 28 days. You know, so they've gone from a week to 28 days, but that's simply because of demand. Mortgage applications are taking longer. I know we've talked about the furlough problem, but yes, they, you know, mortgage companies are inundated. I think they have struggled to restart again and to keep up with demand. So the actual length of time between initial reservation to final completion has become elongated.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can put your finger on it. It's not one thing that's elongating it. It's just an extension of every facet of the process.
Yeah, and the absolute pressure point is sitting on the conveyancing team of the legal companies such as Bevan Britton and all others, because there's so many transactions trying to get through before March 31st that it must be difficult juggling that. Lisa, if I could ask you to hold for a second, please stay on camera, as it were. We're going to bring forward Marcus and Hannah and come on to some more general points for each. Hello again. So there you are, you trio of successful people in 2020. Let's just start the lookout about 2021. Are you optimistic, partly about your business, but really about the sector, about residential property in Bristol in 2021?
Hi, do you want me to kick off, Greg? Or?
Why not?
Yeah, really positive. I think I was doing a bit of research last night ahead of today, and you know, it was only in the news this morning about families not having to be in London, and that's been massive for Bristol, because before people would always think the be all and end all for business is London, and actually we can look past the M25. So somewhere like Bristol is brilliant for that, because as Lisa was saying, they're looking for 3, 4, 5 bedroom places. So yeah, I think really positive for us for the new year, with people buying houses and then asking us to renovate.
And Marcus, what's your pipeline looking like? I mean, I don't know how far ahead you are looking to provide mortgages. I would imagine it's a fairly small window, or not?
Yeah, well, at the moment, we've obviously the stamp duty holiday, people are rushing to get in by the end of March, and I do hope they extend it. I'm sure all the panelists do. But whether they will or not, I don't know. I wouldn't like to be a solicitor on the 31st of March, because I think they'd be quite busy. They might have to order some pizza and stay in the office all night to get them through. But yeah, I think generally we're certainly expecting it to carry on. As long as demand is there. The things we don't know are how many redundancies there are going to be after furlough payments have properly stopped, I guess. And if you haven't got income, it's quite hard to get a mortgage. But there are plenty of people who haven't been affected. There's still plenty of demand. There's actually still pent up demand from where people couldn't compete on properties during lockdown. So we're certainly positive about next year. Yeah.
And Lisa, I'm going to guess you're going to concur with that, are you?
Absolutely. Like Marcus, we're looking at Q1 of 2021, 2022. I think for us, that's going to be a real pinch point. We will then understand, you know, with regards to the volatile economy that we've been in, how the furlough scheme is going to end, what unemployment's going to look like, whether or not we still carry on with our pent-up demand. So for us personally, it's getting a really good, strong book of forward reservations, because, you know, that does worry me slightly, that we've not actually got to that crux point or that pinch point of the COVID-19 effect. I think we're going to be looking at Q1 for next year really keenly.
Yeah, we've had I think 4 questions in from James Kingston of Kingston. I'll take them at different points. The first one, he's keen to hear what where the panel see the most amount of growth coming from in the property market in Bristol, either with respect to James, either by type of property, I think he might be talking about, or maybe even place. Where are the hot places of Bristol, would you imagine?
Shall I take that one? So I will say to you that I think the hot places are going to be the places that are not immediately on your first choice list. I think we're going to be looking at secondary locations. I think secondary locations over the next 5 years are going to be a great place to want to invest money in Bristol. I think Bristol has seen this year about a 5% growth. Different commentators will give you different figures, but it's around a 5% growth in value. But I think it's going to be those places on the M4 corridor, you know, those sort of external parts of Bristol that haven't seen a lot of new development. We've got a development out at Lawrence Weston that we're just about to start now for 127 units. And I think those are the places where at the moment they're affordable, but they're not going to be affordable forever. So I think we've moved away from the waterfronts and we're going out now to the suburbs.
Marcus and Hannah, do you see that similar trend of going further out where there might be, you know, hot?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, you go first, Marcus.
Sorry. Yeah, I certainly space. I mean, I read ONS statistics saying that since the start of the year to September, property's gone up by 4.7% according to them, but detached property 6.2%. So again, properties with more space, more greenery. I think people have been in lockdown and thought, certainly if they're in a flat with no garden, then do they want more space? So that, I think that is going to have a big effect on people's decisions.
And James has sort of further clarified the point, saying that he's particularly interested in which sector of property do they see growth. For example, maybe affordable housing, spec housing, specialist housing, I guess, commercial, perhaps existing buildings, changing usage and so on. Where do you, if you looked at it structurally, where would you see the growth coming in 2021?
I've noticed that quite a lot. I mean, it's quite sad really, but a lot of the pubs that are going to be redundant to a degree, quite a few I've been looking online at the auctions and they're coming up. So I think I only just recently viewed one a couple of weeks ago with a client that is closed, won't be reopening, and is now on the market to be converted into affordable living. And I think that we may see that sort of thing happening. I don't know about the others, how they feel on that, but yeah, I think regards to buildings that will no longer be needed or functional will then become affordable housing. It's
certainly to the change of use point, I guess, that as with Bristol, so with all other authorities, there arguably needs to be yet greater flexibility on using property which may previously have been residential, retail, or hospitality, or whatever the previous use was, because you know there will be value out there.
Yeah, we arranged quite a lot of finance, Greg, on offices converted under permitted development rights to residential property, and that certainly is I mean, I wouldn't say commercial's growing because obviously people are now potentially going to be working from home a lot more. So certainly offices could be becoming redundant, which will open up that opportunity for people to buy those and turn them into residential property.
And although this is residential focused, this discussion, I suppose the other observation about commercial is that companies are reusing or seeking to reuse the space so that it is higher quality, possibly smaller space in some cases. But equally, there's a number of companies looking to come from, you know, London again, because they realise the quality of life, the way people work and so on. They can have satellite or hub offices in a different way than previously. So again, that market, I guess, is in a process of absorbing the longer term effects of what's been happening with the pandemic.
I think if anything, for this pandemic has almost been a trial run for so many companies that were thinking future-wise, to cut down on the commute, office costs. It's crazy, really. It's how you are able to adapt to working from home pretty quickly. We've had loads of clients inquire about home offices. Space at the end of the garden that's just sitting there not being used, can that be transformed or a garage converted? So it's those sort of areas that we've noticed a real growth as well.
We've certainly seen it in Bristol Life, almost across the piece. This time of the great pause, as it's been called, absolutely is also the great accelerator, that things are happening faster than they would have done otherwise in all our lives, including our commercial lives. Can I come back to the stamp duty point? So on current run, it goes to March 31st. Stamp duty is waived up to £500,000. So any property below that, no stamp duty. Any over it, that first 500 has the saving. And Lisa, perhaps you'll know this, or well, any of you will know, it's 3% is the saving.
It's basically 15,000 maximum.
Yeah, okay, so 3% on 500, 15 grand. That's, whilst there is, I gather there's some sort of legal process of challenging whether or not that can be extended in whichever circumstances, perhaps a bit like football transfer deadline day about what constitutes an exact sale going through or whatever. Come on, mate, it is going to finish. What do you think the effect of that? We know the effect in advance is a bottlenecking, and it'll be difficult to get some transactions away. There might have to be an exchange of value between buyer and seller very late on. What do you think it's going to happen? What's going to happen come April 1st onwards? Price soft?
I think there will be. I mean, it's quite difficult in the new homes market because it's going to very much depend on developers' build programs. Because obviously, if the build program runs over, and at the moment, for us personally, it takes on average about 8 to 12 weeks longer now to build the house, working in the way that we were.
Lisa, I'm sorry, but I'm afraid your line is breaking.
Sorry, Greg.
Sorry.
Okay, could you hear that all right?
No,
yeah.
Would you mind saying it again? You're saying it's taking 8 to 12 weeks longer to build. We lost
it. It is, yes. So it's taking slightly longer to build a house now because of the way that we have to build, because of the COVID-19 restrictions, and obviously our supply chain as well. We are looking for huge amounts of windows, doors, bricks. And there's going to be a lot of pressure. Obviously, you've got the Brexit fact as well that we haven't factored into the conversation as well. That a lot of our stuff will come from the European marketplace. I think leveled on top and layered on top of the stamp duty issue will also be the changes in the Help to Buy legislation. So Help to Buy changes as well from the 1st of April. Help to Buy will now only be available to first-time buyers, and it'll have regional caps in place. I think in Bristol and the Southwest is 350,000. So I think we've got a lot of things all happening at the same time. So that I think will be a bit of a worry for the property market.
Marcus, your take on that? I mean, Lisa has mentioned the dreaded B word of Brexit. That, of course, is a factor. It's as ever, it's going to be really difficult to anticipate quite what effect that might have. What's your take on that? As Lisa's explained, a more complicated landscape post April 1st.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a lot of changes, as Lisa said. To a certain extent, if the stamp duty, if you're looking purely at that, there were still purchases plenty going on when it wasn't there, so it'll always carry on. And disappointing for people because there's a lot of money could be saved with it, but it will still carry on. But yeah, there are so many other factors, and we still don't truly know how bad redundancies are going to become from a lot of businesses after furloughs ended. So yeah, really, really difficult to judge. But as long as there's demand for property, you'd imagine it would carry on.
Well, at the risk of egregiously banging the drum for the Bristol Property Awards, that is one of the reasons why we changed it to the symposium, precisely to have sort of national level insight based on research about the trends going forwards, because these are complex times and there'll be different iterations and interpretations, but come what may, we've all got to find a way of generating business howsoever in these times. Let's come back to the working from home aspect. Marcus, on mortgages, are you finding people are looking to get a second mortgage in order to be able to, convert that shed, as Hannah's talked about, or extend a home in some way? Is that a driver for your business?
Yeah, definitely. We've had a lot of people looking to do a further advance or remortgage and raise funds for that purpose, actually. I mean, some people are glad to not be at home and want to get back in the office, if you've got the kids running around and stuff. But yeah, I think people realise that if they have worked at home and they've got the kids running around, I need a separate space. I certainly have that, and so I totally understand. But we are definitely seeing people doing that, and it's quite an easy thing to do. So as long as it fits on affordability with your income, quite easy to borrow extra money on your property, and you're actually adding value to the property, aren't you? So you're not just throwing that money away.
Yeah, and or adding value to how you live and the peace of mind and what else that goes with it. Lisa, we're thinking back to your previous times with Savills and less in terms of new builds. Is it fair to say that the apartment market is probably a little bit more troubled because the lack of space that apartments inherently have compared with larger scale premises or further out with gardens or whatever?
If I take you back to the last sort of failing housing market economy that we had, the last downturn, it was the apartment market that was hit first. So we saw those horror stories of apartments being hit financially by up to 25%, if you remember, in that big crash that we had back in 2007. Undoubtedly, I probably think that if we do have any dip in the marketplace moving forward, that most certainly apartments will be harder hit. They tend to be the product that gets hit as soon as you get a downturn, and I think that's because buyer demand it's slightly less for apartments. The people that live in an apartment are slightly more specific, and having said that, with everything, there is always an opportunity, and maybe this is now the opportunity to deliver apartments with greater outside space, with more clever design internally that allows people to work from home. With all of those things, with every downside tends to be an opportunity out there. But undoubtedly, I think the apartment market will be hit far more ferociously than your standard 3 and 4 bedroom detached properties, in your suburbs of the cities. And again, Greg, can we just talk a little bit? Sorry, Greg, can we bring it back a little bit as well to the affordable housing angle? Yeah. You touched on earlier about affordable housing. And I think it's quite a key point that most of the big councils now, like Bristol City Council, so the Lawrence Weston scheme that we're developing is in conjunction with Bristol City Council. And I think the councils are starting to become more upfront with, look, guys, we have some land here. What can we do with it? We don't know what we want to do with it. Can you help us? So I think those relationships moving forward will be far stronger as well. It won't be just your standard PLCs and then your second-hand market. I think you'll see lots of joint ventures out there with the councils in various different formats to be able to, allow us to deliver the numbers that we need to keep the housing figures moving.
Is it? It's a slightly loaded question, but not meant badly. Honest. Have these times made partnerships easier? Partly because people are having to, but also because in this point about business, in a sense, has been simplified. You can just figure out whether it's referring you to each other or whatever else it might be, or referrals with solicitors particularly. Are you seeing more partnerships and more need for it?
I think I know it sounds a little bit a little bit cheesy, but I think people are much kinder now. If I'm being really honest with you, I think people are looking at other people's positions and they're understanding more how they feel about something. And hopefully that's reflected not only with our colleagues, our stakeholders, but also our customers. I think we're taking a step back and we're really sort of becoming, you know, our empathy levels have reached new heights maybe that they hadn't reached before. So yeah, absolutely, I would agree with that, definitely.
And Marcus or Hannah, are you seeing that as sort of either a greater opportunity or greater need for partnerships?
Yeah. Sorry, Hannah. Yeah, I would say so. Certainly with what we talked about earlier, with people working from home and just having that relationship to be able to pick up the phone and speak to someone, things are more difficult. You don't have the same systems at home as you do in the office, and I think it's appreciation that it is a bit more difficult at the moment. That helps as well.
I think with my business particularly, I've really tapped into people who I want to work with. So interior designers, or plumbers, electricians, getting a really good core group of, you know, independent Bristol businesses who are owned by people like myself. I've sort of got a really nice bubble of people that I'm happy to refer to, but also on a client level, I think that my clients during this time have become almost more like friends, and you know, it's a much more personal relationship than it perhaps was before. And we've also had to undertake understanding on, you know, things that are longer and explaining that to clients, that there may be delays in materials, or building inspector can't come on site because they're on a skeleton staff. So I think, like Lisa said, this element of being kinder, completely blown away by people. But I also think that there's and I'm really sort of sensitive towards this, that yes, our business is okay, but I don't want to become complacent and smug about that, because I fully appreciate that that's not the case across the board. And so, you know, during the kind of lockdown time, I used some of my platform to promote other businesses not in the same sector. So, you know, and working with people and really drawing on what we have here in the city. Really, really important time for that too.
Yeah, it's a point very well made, and you know, fortunately there are a number of other like-minded souls in Bristol. It's been in that respect, it's been incredibly heartwarming. That sense of, you know, Bristol together, there is a unity, or at least a recognition of interconnectedness, if no more than that, which has been accelerated. Can I come back to the London point? Talk a little bit more, perhaps give a flavour of the type of the capital from the capital, the flight from London effect that you're seeing. Maybe give without naming someone, but the type of life stages of people who are looking to come to Bristol. Lisa, perhaps.
I think historically, we were looking at families that had made the decision to now have a couple of children, and they, you know, mum or dad goes off to London to work, and then there's some really good schools in and around the southwest, and they want their children to go to those schools. So I think historically that was the driver. I think we're finding now that there's a younger market that are not seeing the, you know, the city as being the be all and end all in London. I think Bristol recently, or was it last year, was voted the best city to live in by one poll. I know there's lots of different polls out there, but you know, whichever one you want to look at. But
play the hand you have.
But no, definitely, I think we're seeing a younger clientele. We're seeing the client now that is not thinking, well, do you know what, I've got to go to London to make it, and then I can come back when I'm 42, and I want, you know, and I want my kids to go to a great school. I think they're taking that step much earlier now. But I still think we'll see a spattering of international buyers as well. I think they will always be there. I think our international money in Bristol and Bath is still very strong.
Yeah. And Marcus, for your business, I would imagine that the majority of clients, customers that you have, will be in the Bristol area. Is that fair? Has that been changed?
Well, yeah, majority. But funnily enough, a lot of people are from all around the country, because we've always been able to deal remotely with clients anyway. So we were quite lucky to be set up in that way already when this all came in. But what Lisa just said, we've had quite a few clients coming from London, probably I would say couples without children, perhaps low 30s, looking to come back to Bristol and I guess set up a family really, and they're thinking a better lifestyle. And a lot of those people are still keeping staying with the companies that they're already with in London and are able to do it from Bristol. So it's great. Yeah.
And that's the big change of working from home, the realization that rather than it being the occasional Friday and long weekends, actually it can be a much longer, and it's occasional trips to London. It flips the other way around.
Yeah.
And how are you, those Londoners, are you picking up?
Yeah, absolutely. But also, Lisa just touched on the international side. I've got a client, they've relocated from Sydney, they bought a house, they wanted to be in Bristol. One of them works within the television industry and felt that Bristol was really well placed to be over in Cardiff, Birmingham, and to get to London, but also in normal times, the airport is, really accessible. So that's why they chose here and didn't choose London. So I definitely think it's almost a bit of a secret. I don't want to tell too many people because life here is so brilliant, and we'll benefit from it because house prices will go up. But equally, when you are wanting to maybe move to a bigger house when you're already here, that might be a bit harder, I think, for people already in Bristol.
Okay, we're coming towards the end of this, Sarah, already, but I'd ask you to name a specific area rather than in Bristol. Were you to move personally, and you may or may not be thinking of that, were you to move, where would you move? Where would you think this is a cool place, or a ridiculous metaphor, having gone from cool to a hot place? You know what I mean? Somewhere that's rising in perception. Where would you choose to go? And Lisa, please, I will disallow you saying to a premise which Kiro has built. that's not an option. So what type of area of Bristol would you go to? You're thinking about it right now. I'm going to go to Marcus instead. You say where you might go.
Well, for me personally, I'd love Lee Woods. Just to walk over the suspension bridge, you've got Lee Woods, beautiful place to walk as well. Very nice houses, not enough of them and too expensive, but very nice place, I think, to live.
And Hannah?
I'm currently working on a property in Knoll Park at St Martin's Road, and the size of the houses there are phenomenal. And it's really opened my eyes to, we always thought Henleys and Clifton and Redland were the places, but when you look at what you're able to get and the size of that, I think that's worth entertaining a bit further. So I'd look over there.
A top tip from you, Lisa?
I probably would be thinking suburbs. I'd probably be thinking, I know you said I couldn't do this, but we've got a large parcel of land in Yatton, 154 units there.
Oh,
and I
really?
think it's a good location for wanting countryside, that country feel, but you're just on the outskirts of a fantastic city centre. And as everybody else has pointed out, you can get so much more for your money. So if it was me, I'd be looking to look at one of those type of semi-country / close to really good road links and be able to get into the city centre within sort of 15-20 minutes.
What's emerged from that your answers is the dare I say increasing diversity of attractive places in Bristol, that it has changed over time, and again it may have accelerated in these times. But there are just so many great different areas and different rationales and reasons to live or move within Bristol. And your positivity this morning, each of you, has just been tremendous. We are all, we're all affected by everyone else. We're all buoyed up by other people. But I'm sure people watching this, even if their own area is not as robust and successful as you've each spoken about, nonetheless, they will also, I would hope, I have personally, I would hope others have taken greatly from this. I'd just like to pick up on probably 2 or 3 themes that have been touched on. One is the sense that perhaps increasingly people had been a little bit more atomized. They've been within their sort of private world, private space. And these times have brought people together to realize that point about connectedness, that the reach out of empathy that you've, 3 of you, certainly 2 of you have spoken about, the need to see it from, what the world looks like from other people's perspectives. That's been quite heartwarming, that sense of beyond self, which this has brought through. The other is that lockdown makes everything local. And we have always championed the independence with Bristol Life. It's a key part of our rationale. But part of the reason is that the independents define our cities. They are what make our cities different, better, interesting. And Hannah, your point about finding ways of partnering with or helping promote other independent businesses, absolutely brilliant. It's vital that we all do that, maintain that sort of specialism. And in closing, I'd like to, on everyone's watching's behalf, to thank our speakers, Hannah Malkovich, Bill Bristol, Lisa Howells, Curo, and Marcus Robinson, Mortgage Style. Thank you ever so much for your candour, and it's great to hear your stories this morning. Also, thank you to Bristol Life Business Club sponsor, Bevan Britton, and to David Hobbs for his comments earlier in the day. Thank you for your time and your questions. That next Bristol Life Business Surgery, just a reminder, 25th November with Strike OLT on data and cyber security. Look out for that next Bristol Life Business Club on December 16th. This will be on social and our website and so on. So on charities and Christmas, about how our charities have been navigating these times. Please talk to us about how you can be involved. If you've got a business service which would benefit from a deeper dive into a sector, again, talk to us about the business surgeries, because we all need advice, and that's been completely clear this morning. We are all in the same storm, but yes, in different boats each time. Remember those Bristol Life Awards and the Bristol Property Symposium. It is important that we rebuild, we come together, and we look to establish more business in 2021. I hope this has been a useful and certainly an interesting session this morning. Good luck, good wisdom to all. This has been a Media Clash production, and this has been the latest Bristol Life Business Club. Bristol together. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.